Let's have some fun. Cool. So, Champ, maybe the first question's for you. You might be the most dominant cornerback that I've ever seen play. For the majority of your career, people just refused to test you. Talk about how you managed to stay at such a high level, but also empower your teammates to be successful while you created the football equivalent of an island.
Oh, wow. Dominant, huh?
Yeah. The ring shows it, man.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, okay. I tell you what, one thing about playing football is, I loved it. I loved the game. I loved, being on a team, and I love my teammates. So I always went into it not wanting to let anybody down. But I'm very competitive as well. So I always wanted to make sure that I was prepared going into the game. I practice hard. I always tell all the young kids, you get paid to practice. Every guy that come in that door, when I was with the Broncos, I tell you get paid to practice. The games are just a bonus. You win and lose during the week. Sundays, Thursday nights, Monday nights, those are just the bonus. That's just when you get out there and show what you've been doing all week. But really you make your money in practice. So just being prepared and not wanting to let my teammates down is really what drove me. And that's what kept my level of consistency so high.
Thanks, man. Nicki, next one's for you. One of the transitions you've made is from player to coach. A lot of the founders and business leaders in here transition from being players to coaches as well, maybe from being a manager to a founder, manager to an investor. What are some of the key takeaways from that transition you think might be able to help leaders in here that are transitioning in some way?
Well, I think you have to meet people where they're at. I think the first thing I learned is I was a gym rat as a player. I loved to play. I never thought I would go into coaching. My background in college was mechanical engineering. And the reason I just loved the game so much, I wanted to stay with it. But if the first lesson I learned in coaching was don't expect all your players to be like you, and learn to meet them where they are and get the most out of them. And I think that was a key takeaway, because I wouldn't win many games if I played the 12 players or the 5 players who always practiced the hardest, who were always there early, always stayed late. Sometimes it's about getting the most and finding where they're at and getting them where you need them to go. And so I think that's a big lesson when you go from playing to coaching, is understanding not everybody's like you and figuring out how you can get the most out of them.
Yeah, love that. Levon, and you're going to think this is amazing, by the way. Levon played over 10 years in the league, and at one point he started over 107 games in a row at left inside linebacker, which is a record. It's remarkable. I'm sure a lot of those games you weren't 100%. Can you talk about how to successfully lead a team when you're not at your best?
Well, I think when you talk about leading in any capacity, you have to first be the example. You have to show it not through words and not through empty speeches, but doing it through action, practicing hard, being there on time. That's when I think people will follow you. If your actions are on point and you're doing the right thing, then there's not going to be a problem with you having followers. Mm-hmm. So even if I was banged up or hurt, guys knew I was going to be there. They knew that they could depend on me, that I was going to show up every time and give, not always 100%, but at least between that 100%, 93%. Because a big guy like me,
100% what you had.
A big guy like me would get tired sometimes, so it'll be 93%. But you show. I think that you show it by actions. You show it by being there and being reliable.
Yeah. In Dikembe, coming over from the Congo, you didn't speak any English. You now speak over 9 languages, and you're the global ambassador for the NBA, which is unbelievable. Talk about what that means and what works you're doing with that title.
First, I want to say thank you for having me here. It's been great for me just to be as a global ambassador and to represent our league around the globe. It comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot of traveling, a lot of speaking engagement, and a lot of appearances. But all I will say that I was lucky and fortunate enough to play this game more than 18 years and accomplish as much as I did. And carry myself to the way I did during my 18 years. And I think that what kind of brought the love to the NBA and to the commissioner to call me up and to give me this role of NBA as a global ambassador. But my job is to spread the game all over around the globe, where the game is not being played, to make sure that that country, that particular country or city, kids have access to the basketball court. If they do, we bring the coaches or we come with the trainer to train the coaches. But if they don't have a basketball court, then we go in and build basketball court like we're doing right now in Africa, where we build more than 100 plus basketball courts. In Asia, we build more than 10,000. In South America, we build more than 200. So our game continues to grow, and we are very happy with it.
It's awesome. It's really incredible. Sheryl, you were the first player signed in the WNBA. The first. Neil Armstrong, Barack Obama, Charles Lindbergh, Sheryl Swoopes. That's awesome. We got you know what I'm saying? This is incredible. But no, you know, it's funny, but like, you know, seriously, talk about what it was like to be, you know, the first, you know, woman athlete in the WNBA, you know, and a woman athlete back then, and really how far we've come and what times are like now.
So first of all, like Dikembe, I want to say thank you guys for having us here. It's such an honor for me to be on this panel. That is the first time ever, so that's another first, that I've ever been mentioned in the same sentence as Neil Armstrong. Ever. So that is another first.
Check that one off.
You know, for me, it's just been such an incredible honor to be able to represent not just the WNBA and female athletes or female basketball players, but just women in general. I just think we as women, and I'll speak for myself personally, I always take it as an opportunity when I get in front of people to talk about just how great we are as women.
Yeah.
Because I think all the things that come with being a woman, it's a challenge every day. And we find ways to deal with it and to overcome so many obstacles and things that are in our way. But when you talk about the WNBA, to be the first player signed in the WNBA, it was an honor, but it was also, there was a lot of pressure. And I took that as a personal responsibility to do my part as an individual to help continue to grow the game, not just in the States, but globally. And to see how far the game has come since '97. When I first started, and it's now 2019, and the league is still moving on, and it's stronger and better than ever. I still feel a sense of pride in that and a sense of responsibility in having to continue to do my part to help make the league grow. So it's absolutely an honor for me to still be involved with the game, and just looking forward to so many more successful years to come.
It's awesome. And Champ, I know you've probably described this one too many times at this point, but I've got to ask about the 2006 play against New England. And you can describe this scenario for the people in the crowd. I remember reading about this play, though, and I'll let him describe the scenario. And he said, his quote was, he knew exactly where it was going, and he basically worked out a play with his teammate Darren, and he just made the play. It was a 100-yard, basically almost touchdown. I don't know how you go 100 yards. That was amazing, by the way. Basically you knew where the play was going, and how did you know that, and how did you do that time and time again throughout your career?
Well, the reason I knew because they had done it quite a few times early in the game, but the thing was, the way we were playing it, it didn't match, it didn't give us the advantage, so to speak. So, at some point in the game, me and Darren Williams, the late Darren Williams, we just decided we got to make an adjustment. He was playing inside, I was playing outside. So I say, let's pass it off. And we did it at the right time, and it just so happened. I knew exactly where they were going. For me, I was fortunate enough to have pressure on the play, from Nick Ferguson coming from the backside, and he made Brady roll out. He threw the ball right to me, and, that same guy that made him throw the ball is the same guy that missed the block down the field and got me knocked out at the 1 yard line. But, it was a very bittersweet moment for him. But at the same time, we ended up scoring, so it wasn't as bad. So we ended up winning the game. And it was a pivotal point in franchise history because the Patriots were riding so high, and we could not get over that hump.
Yeah.
And that's why they brought me there, to make plays like that. And I was just glad I could live up to it.
Has anyone else gone 100 yards now without scoring?
I don't think so. I am so hoping somebody does that.
You're like, please.
So people can stop
Bail
talking
me
about
out.
my play.
I'm sorry for bringing it up.
All good. All good.
Nicki, your first season in Atlanta, you honestly, you started a bit of a rocky start. Like all of us in business, there's poor starts to the years and they can happen. But after being 500, 8-8 halfway through the season, you went on to win 15 of the last 17. And then you ended up becoming coach of the year that year. So talk about the changes you made to get everyone around you, the teammates, coaches, staff, to go all in and make that type of run.
Well, I think I was lucky enough to inherit a group of players that wanted success and understood that it wasn't going to happen overnight. We put our base defense in, and we started with that, knowing that we could be better defensively before we were going to be good offensively. And I always, when I first took the job, my personal motto has always been, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that's really how I coach, getting to know them, getting to understand who they are on and off the court, and really investing in them, not just as basketball players, but as humans. And I think it starts there. Because I was a first-time head coach. I'm sure they were feeling me out. I like to think that they liked me, but at the same time, this is a pro sports. They don't care if they like you if you don't win. So I think it was a situation where we just believed in the process. And, that season was special because even when we weren't very good, we never lost more than 2 in a row. And so it kept the wheels on until we could finally have that breakthrough moment where they saw it all kind of come together and be really good offensively. We were the #1 defensive team in the league from start to finish. But the second half of the season, when we got on that run, we moved all the way up to 4th offensively in the league. And so that's where it changed, where they saw the hard work, all the stuff we'd put in start to kind of come together. Their backbone was their defense. And when they started scoring, all of a sudden it put us on that magical run. And when you go on those runs in any sport, when players believe that they're going to win the game, when the game gets close, they find ways to make plays. We think about that year, and we think about the fact that we were 17-0 and we led going into the 4th quarter. We were 8-0 in games decided by 5 points or less. Stats that just don't happen, but it all started with that belief system in what we were doing and how we were going to try to get there.
Yeah, it's awesome. Levon, you were waived in 1999 after winning back-to-back Most Valuable Player awards for the Steelers, 97 and 98. You moved to Seattle, though, and you ended up having another 100-tackle year. Can you talk about overcoming that adversity?
Well, I have to let you know that it was tough because I was what I call a Steelers soldier.
Yeah.
I dedicated myself to that team, but it was a part of the business. And then when I got waived, it was tough. I remember one night, I think I was like the lady from Fatal Attraction. I was just clicking on the light, wondering what my next move is going to be. But what I did was, there's a saying in football, you got 24 hours after you win or you lose to kind of get over it. It took me a little bit more than 24 hours, maybe a week or so. I realized that I could go somewhere else, start anew, start afresh. And from that point on, I just kind of picked myself up and just really started believing in my ability and what I could do. I didn't take it personally. After that whole week, I knew that I can move on, that the Steelers were going to move on, the NFL will move on. So I knew it was an opportunity for me to meet other players, playing in another system. And I tell you what, it was a great experience for me. Something that seemed like it was a downer when you get cut because no player wants to get cut or waived. But I learned from that and understood that, football is about getting knocked down and getting back up. So those lessons as a football player, those soft lessons really helped me to move on to Seattle and then to Philly and on to retirement.
Yeah. Super cool. Dikembe, as a defensive player, I've always been fascinated by the way you played. I wasn't 7'2". Are you giving me a hard time that I'm small? Mount Mutombo, though, was a staple of my childhood. While you won 4 individual Defensive Player of the Year awards, your defense has also consistently outperformed, league averages. So what were the principles you used to lift the rest of your team to such high performance?
I think first I was well coached in college. That's where all my greatness come from. I give all of the credit to my college coach, John Thompson, who told me that you didn't have so much experience playing basketball as a young man, but only thing I can teach you as you start playing the ball in college is how to play defense. We are not worrying about you how many points you're going to score in every night, but we just want you to help us win every given night. And then we're going to ask you just to block shot and rebound. You don't need to score. And he said, and if you can do that, I'm going to make you a rich man. So, it's not like he was going to pay me, but he was going to let somebody pay me. And I just did believe in him, and I put my trust in him, and I went and did what I was supposed to do. And I carried the same thing when I got to the NBA. Told my teammates that, hey, you guys take care of the thing on the front, I'm going to take care of the back. And that's the reason why I was able to have success over my career, almost 18 years, is developing that trust and caring about each other and trusting each other, love each other, and setting each other a goal and the objective, and knowing that this is what we want to accomplish this year. This is what we're going to be. And this also you have to look at the self-statistic, how you're performing. Everyone in every company, if you cannot look at yourself and calculate your performance, I don't think the company is not going to be good. Because always you count on your teammate or you count on your coworker, but you never look at yourself. You have to see, is my contribution helping the company or affecting the company? And as long as you know that, I think the chance for you guys to succeed is very high.
Love that. Sheryl, you're frequently referred to as the female Michael Jordan. And I hear he gets the same as well. The male Sheryl Swoopes.
You were so good.
You won.
You're so good.
Yeah, that's 2 now.
I know, you're really good.
You won 3 WNBA MVPs. You had a Nike shoe. Talk about how you were to couple that tremendous individual success with the tremendous team success you had with 4 WNBA titles.
Well, golly, I don't know, since you put it that way. Actually, I started playing ball when I was 7 years old. And I think for me, I knew at such a young age that basketball would be like my ticket to change my life, to change my family's life. And at such a young age, I really started focusing on what I needed to do to be the best version of myself. And fast forward to the WNBA. In the beginning, it was really difficult because I got pregnant the first year. So I missed pretty much the beginning of the WNBA, the inaugural season. But it was so important to me to come back and be a part because I wanted my teammates to know that I wanted to be a part of that season with them. So 6 weeks after I had my son, I came back and I was on the court, not saying I was great, but I was at least back out on the court, a few pounds overweight. But it was having my own sneaker shoe and having an endorsement with Nike. In the beginning, it was really tough because not really understanding or knowing how your teammates would accept that. Being the first athlete, and as much as I hate to say this, sometimes we as women can be a little bit more petty about things like that than guys. Mm-hmm. But I think once my teammates realized that it wasn't about me, and I made sure that they realized it wasn't about me, it wasn't about the sneaker deal, but it was an opportunity for me to hopefully open up doors for a lot of other women coming behind me. And I just think Nike's commitment to saying we're going to do this for you, it was about the bigger picture, and it was about the league and promoting women and opening doors, which is something that I try to continue to do today. So once my teammates understood that I was a team player, I think they at that point then accepted it and wanted to be a part of that. And I think that was a huge part of why we were able to be so successful, because every single player on that team understood what our roles were. We understood what the bigger picture was, and we were able to sort of put our personal issues and egos to the side and do what we had to do collectively to win championships.
Yeah. And Champ, you hold the record for most Pro Bowl selections by a defensive back ever with 12. You talked a little bit about this earlier with you don't get paid to play, you get paid to practice, right? So talk about what it takes to maintain that level of excellence over such a long career and to have success.
Well, it goes back to accountability. And, I always led with that because, I would see guys, just worrying about things they can't control, so to speak. And, all I wanted to do is make sure I did my part.
Mm-hmm.
I did my job and then help others do their job well. And I said, if I could do that, then I could be a good teammate. And I think it's just, just wanting to be accountable. When I'm on that field, I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
I do not want to fail. So I'm always preparing, over-preparing, making sure that everything is aligned with what I'm trying to accomplish. And every part of my game was geared towards success. The way I went out and practiced, how I put my cleats on, It didn't matter. Everything was geared towards my success. And that's how you sustain that level of consistency. I mean, whether it's at a high level or low level, you just got to be consistent with your work and your preparation. And everything always started there with me, just being accountable, letting that control my mindset, but also putting that work in.
Yeah. And Nicki, as someone with 3 sisters that played Division I sports, I love how far the WNBA's come. For recent women graduating college, it's all they've ever known is a league, and obviously shout out to you. And now the league's also in a video game. So talk about what it takes to grow a team and a league and a successful organization.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I think the exciting thing about the WNBA is we're the truly the longest lasting professional women's sports league. And I think it has a lot to do with the business model that we started with. When the ABL, I'm actually a product of my senior year in college was when the WNBA was starting, the ABL existed. Sheryl was one of the first players to choose the WNBA over the ABL. The ABL was a more traditional league. It was a winter league. It paid more. It had a lot of great athletes in it. And for me, my dream was to play in the WNBA. And so I went overseas, and that same year, the ABL folded. And all those ABL players, the Katie Smiths, many Hall of Famers moved into the WNBA, and I knew a 5'5" point guard that played at Marquette was probably wasn't the right time for me in a small league. So I did the next best thing. But I think it started with a good business model, right? And I think it with the backing of the NBA, and the league has changed over the course. It's expanded. It's had teams fold, but it started with the help of the NBA. And now half of our teams are not affiliated with an NBA team anymore, and Atlanta being one of them. And I think it's about corporate partners. It's about getting to the right people. I mean, right now we're in a unique situation, I think, as women, where we have the Me Too movement. We have Her Time's Up, it's Her Time, all these different things that are making it, be bigger,
yeah.
be more prominent, and you're seeing us. And so, I think we have to be consistent in how we perform on the court. I think the league's never been in a better place in terms of the quality of play, but we still have to continue to grow to keep up.
Yeah. Levon, I think it's probably safe to say the NFL has more alpha males than almost any other profession. Can you talk about what it's like to get a bunch of alpha males to work together and how you were able to do it so successfully?
Yeah, it was tough because in my huddle, I had on one side Kevin Green, Greg Lloyd, Rod Woodson, Carnell Lake, and I've never played the inside linebacker before. I never played it before, and I remember the first game, Coach Cowher is telling me, hey, you have to take over the huddle. And I was like, okay, how do you expect me to do that with these other alpha males?
Yeah.
So honestly, I just got really creative, and I just pretended that I was the alpha male of all the alpha males. And basically what I would do is I would just try to make them laugh, just try to be there for them. When a mistake happened, I kind of took the responsibility. Even though it may be someone else's fault, I kind of took that responsibility. And because I played so hard and I was an unselfish player, guys started falling in a little bit.
Yeah.
They started believing in the person who was out front, giving the signals, telling them what to do. Because if you don't really do it yourself, nobody else is going to follow you. And so I basically got really creative and pretended that I was more alpha than the rest of them. And, sometimes in football you had to be a little stern, even with the guys who were Hall of Famers. I remember one story, Kevin Green would always ask me, after I said the play, he would say like, hey Kirk, what's the play again? And so I got really tired of it. And it was in a game, and he's like, hey, Kirk, what's the play? I'm like, I am not telling you the play. And after that, he kind of paid attention. So sometimes you have to, as a leader.
Run straight, man.
Sometimes you have to, have to give them a little tough love. But I think the most important thing that I always try to do is show them respect, show them love, be there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dikembe, you've been building winning teams your whole life, on and off the court. So talk a little bit about what you're passionate about with your own foundations and the work that you're doing there and all over the world.
After playing in the NBA over several years, I realized that I did have a moral duty to give something back to the society, especially from the place where I came from. I grew up very poor. My father, he had 10 children, and 2 girls and 8 boys with my mom, and he was just a teacher who made like $37 a month. So he taught us at a young age how to becoming the young entrepreneur, learn how to sell mango, apple, piece of bread in the market to survive. And living in that type of poverty, no matter where you go, it will stay in your brain regardless where you go in your life, or you can becoming a billionaire one day. You always wonder, how's the people where you come from, how they are living, how they are doing. And I think there was something that I struggled in my life for a long time. I know that I have to do something. Then when my mom passed away in 97, for not being able to make to the hospital that was more than 10 minutes away, and I decided that maybe building another hospital, creating an ambulance system in a country where people don't have to die at home, but they can make it to the hospital. And I went there and built a $30 million hospital with 300 beds in a country, and we have treated more than 200,000 people so far. So it took a lot of discipline to do that, to create jobs, to give hope to the society, and to make people that to believe in themselves, and telling our next generation that coming up that you can do it. Without making them feel like there's no hope in their life. I don't see nobody up there who can show me the way for me to succeed. And that's something that we as individuals, we have to try to find out. It's good to make money. It's good to be happy in life, to live in a big mansion and driving nice car. But sometimes you have to take just 1 or 2 seconds in life and look behind you, wonder yourself, is anybody behind me? There's any people who are suffering? Is any way I can have an impact to the society? And that was something that's been my challenge for me personally, to push not just athletes, but other people in the business world, that we are not here in this world by ourselves. We are not here in Atlanta by ourselves. Take a chance, drive in Southwest Atlanta or Southeast, go to Decatur, go to Lawrenceville, just see how other people are living. Wonder yourself, there's anything I can do in a society. If you do that, it will be a great lesson. I can give it to you for life, and it can change you and also change your children.
It's awesome. It's awesome, man. It's awesome. It's so inspiring for everybody here to do something little. Sheryl, what's the really hard to follow that, by the way?
Yeah, you can skip me and go back to that end.
I'll call it out.
Thanks, Dikembe.
But no, what's the best piece of advice that you were ever given?
In a way, it kind of goes hand in hand with what Dikembe just said. I think everybody always hears the, work hard, believe in yourself, and obviously I agree with those things. But to me, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got, honestly, was when I was older, like 3 years ago, when my mom passed away. I remember the last thing she said to me was to be the best version of yourself and not try to be like someone else. Not saying that that's what I've always wanted to do, but it's hard at times when you're in the spotlight and everyone's watching you and everyone's critiquing what you do, and you don't hear a lot about the good things that athletes do, like what Dikembe's doing, and probably every single person up here, but you're going to hear about the things that aren't so good. And so sometimes it's easy to get caught up in being someone that other people think you should be. So I would say the best piece of advice that I was ever given was from my mom, and that was stop worrying about what other people think about you and who you are, and just be the best version of yourself.
Love that.
And that's what I try to do.
Amen.
But now I got to live up to Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, Charles Lindbergh, he's up there. You got a couple others. Champ, we talked a lot about 12 plus years of dominance and success. Talk to us about a time that you really had to overcome adversity, or maybe the biggest adversity you ever overcome, and how did you do it?
Wow, that's tough. That's a hard question, to be honest, because I was riding high for a while there. I would say maybe the challenges of growing up where I grew up. I grew up in a small town, South Georgia, Folkestone. Population maybe 2,500, and still 2,500, 25 years later.
Holy
yeah,
cow.
so no progression there. But that's typical in rural South Georgia. Anybody from Georgia understands that. But the lack of resources, and what I always saw growing up was people would leave and people would come back. And then they would do whatever their parents were doing for the last 20 years. And I'm like, man, that's a cycle.
Yeah.
So just overcoming that cycle, and there was one guy, Henry McMillan. He went to the University of Florida, 1990. He signed his, oh my God, all the Gators. All right, so he signed a full scholarship at the university in Gainesville, and that's what really let me know, like, okay, I can leave and not come back. He went on to be drafted by the Seattle Seahawks few years after, right after coming out of school, and I'm like, that was the guy that I hung on to. Like, I would always watch him.
Yeah.
I want to be like that guy, not these other 30 guys I've seen leave, come back, and keep that cycle going. So that's the thing. I mean, that's probably was the toughest to overcome, because your family and your community make it so easy for you to come back, but they don't realize that they're stuck in this trap, that there's no progression. So it's tough. It's really tough. I've seen a lot of my boys go through it. I see kids go through it now. I mean, we all went through it. We all had to deal with those pressures of coming back home and continuing that cycle, but we had to break it at some point, and Henry McMillan really inspired me to get out from under that cycle and make sure I do something a little better than what we've seen all our lives.
Yep, it's awesome, man. Nicki, same question as Sheryl. Best piece of advice you were ever given?
Wow. It's funny because it's going to be a little different than what most people say, but I always say I grew up in a household of expectation. It was My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but went back and got her degree and was a 4.0 student when she got her degree in her 30s. My older sister was valedictorian of her high school class. I was, and so was my brother. And so I just kind of lived in this world of you didn't bring home anything but A's. You weren't, you were excellent, regardless of what it was. We were always told we were allowed to bring home less than perfect scores, but we had to be able to look our parents in the eye and say that that was the best we can do. And it's really hard to do that when you know it's not. And so I think it drove me from a young age to be, no matter what I did, to do it at the highest level I could. And I didn't know anything else. But a lot of people, you hear that term like, that, I don't know, what's the saying, that as long as you choose a career that doesn't feel like work, you never work a day in your life. My dad said to me, find a job that pays you well so you can do the things you love to do with your life. And so it's kind of, I don't know that it's the right way. I think I found something I was incredibly passionate about, but it also forced me to pursue the engineering side and to do some things that weren't very normal in college women's basketball. I didn't have a lot of teammates that went into engineering. I still don't know many coaches that are engineers as well. But it was motivating because it was something I was passionate about, but also a career that I knew, could allow me to see the world, to do a lot of the things that if you don't get those kind of degrees, that sometimes those doors are closed.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome, guys. I think we're all out of time. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to the panelists. Hopefully the rest of the conference goes well. All right, man.